The Ohio Land Company, formerly the Ohio Company of Virginia, was a land speculation company organized for the settlement by Virginians of the Ohio Country, which is Ohio, in the year 1748. The president of Ohio Land Company was Thomas Lee, and others who had interest in the company was George Washington's older brother, Lawrence Washington, and Augustine Washington. In 1749, there was a Loyal Company of Virginia, which was also a land speculation company, and the president of this company was John Lewis, but the interest in this company was Peter Jefferson, who was Thomas Jefferson's father. The Ohio Company thought all the land to the west was theirs, and the Loyal Land Company went ahead and started going after the land in Kentucky. King George of the British Crown in 1749 granted the Ohio Company 500,000 acres in the Ohio Valley. The British Crown said that they owned the lands by the famous Doctrine of Discovery. The land was already occupied by my ancestors, and we called it the Turtle Island. Is what you call North America, but Turtle Island included North America, Canada, Mexico, Alaska, and Central America. All of present-day Canada and above is where the upper body of the head is formed by the area above the Arctic Circle. Not included was Greenland. And then the upper east of Canada is one of the shapes of the upper foot. The other upper foot was Alaska. The tail was Mexico and Central America. One of the back feet was the land area of Baja, California, between the Gulf of California and the Pacific Ocean. And the other foot was Florida. My other ancestors seem to be related to South America and the islands of the Pacific Ocean. My most recent ancestors are Hawaii and Ohio. My family always knew where they were. The elders would send out 4 animals to the four corners of Turtle Island looking for other life forms, but they didn't find any. We don't understand what they're talking about, this Bering Strait stuff. And then the men and women were considered equal. The women made the decisions and the men executed them. How they knew the shape of the land, there was a couple stories about it. One of the issues was that the animal they sent out to the far east came back with a mud-shaped turtle on his back. Somehow mud got on his back and it was shaped like a turtle. And that was one of the stories. And another story I heard is that there were 5 natives that wanted to visit the sky to go visit the Great Spirit. They traveled to the east, walking for about a month. They finally arrived to the lands that ended. They tossed their bags over the edge and then they disappeared. But then they went down, down. And as they went down, somehow they started going back upward towards the sky. As they traveled westward, they came upon a lodge where an older woman lived. They told her that they were on their way to see the Great Spirit, and she told them it wasn't possible to see him right now. As they walked away, disappointed, preparing to go back, they encountered a group of angels in white, wearing wings. 2 of the natives enjoyed what they saw, and they asked if they could stay, and they were allowed. So they ended up becoming angels. And what happened was, 2 of them that wanted to stay, they were cooked in these large pots, and the flesh came off the bones. So they gathered the bones. The spirits took them from the pot, and they put the bones back together. And when they put the bones back together, they draped them in a white cloth, and they were brought to life as spirits. The other 3 wished to go back home, so they told them just go to sleep. So when they went to sleep, they woke up. They were back home in their homeland. And then based on paganism, all the stuff that came in, different stories start adding in, all kinds of stuff. So between the two stories, those are the ones that are the best. Anyway, they were never called Iroquois. It was just a hybrid term that the Americans came up with. They are Huron, Teton, Neutral, Mohawk. I'll start spelling the rest. Onangaga, Oneida, Seneca, Cayuga, Tuscarora. And together they make up the Haudenosaunee. And there's no such thing as Sioux or Eskimos. Sioux are Lakhota and Eskimos are Inuit. The French entered the country as partners. They said first they would trade with them, then they ended up intermarrying with them. So in 1750, there were no white settlers in Ohio. British claimed the land as theirs, and the natives wanted to maintain their land and lifestyle and control their future. But they ended up becoming dependent on American goods based on the trading that they were doing between the French and Americans. The river system ended up being used as trading, and Benjamin Franklin came along and opened up the Ohio Canal, whatever, which turned into a railroad. Anyway, the French enjoyed the trading, and the French were not really interested in settling in Ohio, but they wanted to maintain the authority. So December 1750, France deployed an army to Ohio. It was just to guard the forts or whatever. So in 1752, Marquis Dequesne became governor of Canada, and then he began building forts along the Ohio Valley. 1753, the King of England informed Robert Dinwiddie, the one who was granting the lands in the Ohio River, who owned the Virginia Company. And he was telling him about the forts being built by the French. So he ended up sending George Washington to deliver a letter to the French demanding them to leave and build a fort. And Benjamin Franklin's first act, instead of asking Dinwiddie for anything, he decided to just steal supplies to build the fort. And George came from a wealthy slave-owning plantation family. He owned tobacco plantations, and the tobacco was very hard on the land, so they were always looking for new land for the plantations. He never had a college education or military background. His older brother Lawrence married into the wealthiest land family in Virginia, the Fairfaxes. His mother mishandled her money, so George took a job as a land surveyor with his brother's wife's family. And back then, if you were a land surveyor, you were like a doctor or lawyer those days. So it was all about who you know and the clout. So he ended up having his own business, and he acquired 200 acres of Virginia for himself. Okay. Washington received a message from the Half-King stating that French were going to attack the English. He didn't like the French, so he was trying to do some dirty stuff to get them to fight. He told his commander about it, and he had orders to stand down, but George Washington didn't. So May the 27th, 1754, he ambushed a unit who was under the command of Joseph de Villers de Jumonville. And the battle lasted 15 minutes. Jumonville was killed. George blamed Half-King for killing the commander, but later George admitted in a letter of assassination to Jumonville that he did it. But then when he came back home, he lied and said he didn't do it. But they have him written in a sworn statement that he actually did it. And that was one of the reasons that started the French and Indian War, which was actually the French and British War. I'm not sure why they called it the Indian War. The Indians got involved, but it was the French and British War. So, May 1756, the war officially started. And in 1759, British began building more forts on the site that the French had. The natives become concerned because of the Treaty of Easton. which eliminated forts on the American land. Chief Pisqueton wanted to know why the general came with a great army. In 1761, Jeffrey Amherst made changes to the native policies. They stopped trading with the natives, which caused the hardship. And then in 1763, the Royal Proclamation came, and I'll talk about that later.